It's been revealed now that the CIA had tapes of the interrogation underway. Were you involved in the taping process?
No, in fact, I first learned about it in the press yesterday.
You did not see cameras?
We had cameras everywhere, but it was our understanding at the time that they were closed-circuit cameras so that other interrogators and medical personnel and security officers could watch the interviews taking place.
You didn't see it being recorded anywhere?
No, I never saw it being recorded.
And now that you know it was recorded and the tapes were destroyed afterwards, what do you make of that?
I'm disappointed, frankly. I understand that the agency's explanation was they wanted to make sure that everything was being done legally and within the guidelines that the organization had set forth. But it makes me wonder instead if they simply didn't trust the interrogators and if they wanted to catch somebody doing something that was unauthorized. So frankly, I'm a little disappointed that they didn't have that trust in us, having already been polygraphed, having undergone, not me, but other interrogators having undergone the training. They still didn't trust us enough to let us do our jobs.
You never saw tapes coming out of a machine or being sent off to Washington?
No, never saw tapes.
And never reviewed them when you were back in Washington?
No, never heard about them even.
Really? So they were very closely held?
Very closely held.
Should they have been destroyed, do you think?
I think not. I think they're a matter of historical record, at least within the agency. They may have some legal import, and they probably should not have been destroyed.
If we were able to look at those tapes with Abu Zubaydah, what would we see?
I think you'll see a lot of very long and very boring conversations about the minutiae surrounding the leadership of Al-Qaeda. I think you'll see a couple of incidents where, at least in the beginning, where he was very tough and uncooperative. And then the rest of it, I think you'll see just a lot of open conversations.
Will you see him being slapped?
You know, I have no idea if that kind of thing was taped. I would assume that it was. So you might see something like that.
If they taped the enhanced interrogation, we would see what?
An open-handed belly slap, maybe, or somebody who's very tired because he's been up for 48 hours and not allowed to sit down. But not much more than that.
Kept him standing for 48 hours. And do you suppose they taped the waterboarding?
Gosh, I honestly don't know. I don't know.
If the American public was to see somebody, even Abu Zubaydah, being waterboarded, what would you guess would?
I think it would be objectionable. It's sort of a violent thing to see or to go through. You may be of one persuasion of the other, where you think it's a necessary thing or you think it's torture, but either way you dice it, it's not something that's pretty to watch.
How does the body react?
Violently.
How so?
To me, it's almost like being shocked, where you tense up because you want to wiggle out of the way of the water, and you can't because you're strapped down and your head is immobilized, and you just have to lay there and take it until the interrogator stops pouring water on you.
And the water's poured, and you have a kind of gag, and you're just gagging.
Yes, you're gagging. Correct.
Shouting, or can you be hurt?
Sure.
And with Zubaydah, that was really only 35, 40 seconds?
Which was remarkable at the time, because none of us were able to withstand more than 10 seconds worth, 10 or 12 seconds. He was quite tough, I recall.
And you think that's what broke him, though?
I do. I do. I think he just didn't want to go through it again. And if the alternative is just sitting at the table across from a guy with a notepad and answering his questions, it's better just to answer the questions.
And he decided to do that?
Yes.
And was that considered a victory inside the CIA?
A big victory. Because once the information started coming in and we were able to corroborate it with other sources and able to disrupt other operations, Al-Qaeda operations or terrorist attacks, that was a big victory.
And who else was present at the interrogation?
There were always several interrogators.
All CIA?
All CIA. There was a doctor. And
a CIA doctor?
A CIA doctor. And then once in a while there would be a substantive expert, like an analyst who was there to ask the question, somebody who really understood the details of what needed to be asked, who was there just happened to be around and asked to stand in.
Were there FBI agents present at all?
It's my understanding that later on in the process, after I had moved on, that FBI agents participated as well.
We'd heard
Not necessarily in the waterboarding, but in the interrogations.
We heard reports that the director of the FBI instructed the agents not to be involved in any
I'm sure that's true.
interrogation.
I'm sure that's true. Those authorities that came from the White House to do the enhanced techniques were solely for the CIA, not for the FBI. So it would make perfect sense to me that the FBI director wouldn't want FBI personnel around.
And did you and other CIA officers feel without a doubt you had the legal right to do what you were doing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember being told when the president signed the authorities that they had been approved not just by the National Security Council but by the Justice Department as well. I remember people being surprised that the authorities were granted. And I remember one of the agency's senior-most leaders saying, this is an awesome responsibility that we have to act within the confines of the law. This isn't going to be something that's being done willy-nilly, that people are going to be trained in it, and we have to follow this to the letter.
And that was done?
And that
what
was
you
done,
saw?
yes. People were very, very concerned at the time about making sure that no one overdid it or no one overstepped the legal authorities. People were very concerned.